I'm very puzzled by the constant concern for the Palestinian people.
The atrocities that continue to mount in Gaza in retaliation for the attack on October 7th by Hamas militants that took the lives of 1,400 Israelis. I put the emphasis there because those lives matter too. But in retaliation for that attack, the right-wing regime of Benjamin Netanyahu, as aided and abetted by the United States of America, has taken at least 6,000 Palestinian lives, including nearly 2,700 children. This update is particularly triggering for me, not simply because of the number of children who died, but the number of children who have died since I released my video, Palestine, 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 Palestine. My heart weeps for Palestine. My soul grieves for the children of Palestine. Over 2,000 babies slaughtered. Shouldn't one be too much? Couldn't your special ops go in clutch? But instead, the political head of Hamas is campaigning on TV. Couldn't be me. Not while my people are getting blown apart at the spleen. I don't mean to be obscene, but tell me, have you not seen what they are doing to the people of Palestine, Palestine? America can't afford another genocide. How many times will we reside on the wrong side of the moral arc of the universe? At the time that I released this video on Tuesday, the number of Gazan babies killed because of these retaliatory strikes was just over 2,000. They are racking up kills in Palestine. But the president of the United States, good old Joe Biden, despite the abundance of videos showing the chaos and the carnage in Gaza, he doesn't seem to believe or want to give any credence to the numbers being reported by the Gazan Health Ministry.
Quickly, in the 18 days since Hamas killed 1,400 Israelis, the Hamas-controlled Gaza Health Ministry says Israeli forces have killed over 6,000 Palestinians, including 2,700 children. You've previously asked Netanyahu to minimize civilian casualties. Do these numbers say to you that he is ignoring that message?
What they say to me is I have no notion that the Palestinians are telling the truth about how many people are killed. I'm sure innocents have been killed, and it's the price of waging a war. I think we should be incredibly careful. I think not we, the Israelis should be incredibly careful to be sure that they're focusing on going after the folks that are propagating this war against Israel. And it's against their interest when that doesn't happen. But I have no confidence in the number that the Palestinians are using.
Attacking the source is an age-old technique to gaslight anyone, whether it be your spouse or an entire planet. Attacking the source gives you the ability to disregard any information coming out of Gaza because you don't trust the source. And so now the United States of America and Israel can set the number of kills to whatever number of kills they think is palatable for the rest of the world. Now, I'm trying my best to discuss this without the emotions that are driven to the surface listening to Joe Biden do this when we see the images of babies being laid in mass graves next to their parents because so many people are dying. None of them can get proper burials. This is what we have seen with our own eyes. And to have the president of the United States say something like this is, well, I mean, to say the least, it's triggering. But for the sake of today's episode, I'm going to compartmentalize that rage and continue on. Here is Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, as he gives what I consider to be one of his most fascistic speeches yet in regards to the people of Palestine.
Our war against Hamas is a test for all of humanity. It is a struggle between the axis of evil of Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas, and the axis of freedom and progress. We are the people of the light. They are the people of darkness, and light shall triumph over darkness. Citizens of Israel, October 7th was a very dark and black day in our history. We will fully investigate what had happened at our southern border, the border with Gaza. Everybody will have to provide answers, myself included, but all that will happen only after the war. As a prime minister, I'm responsible for guaranteeing the future of this country, and now my role is to lead all Israelis, the state of Israel and the people of Israel, to an overpowering victory. It is now a time to come together for one purpose, to storm ahead to achieve victory. In joint forces and a profound belief in our justness, a profound belief in the eternity of the Jewish people, we shall realize the prophecy of Isaiah. There will no longer be stealing at your borders, and your gates will be of glory. Together we will fight. Together we will win.
It is always fascinating to hear leaders use religious jargon to justify their violence. He's referring to Netanyahu there is referring to Isaiah 60:18. No longer will violence be heard in your land, nor ruin or destruction within your borders, but you will call your walls salvation and your gates praise. And they always use it to justify violence against, well, the least of these. The people of Palestine have nothing. They had nothing before. They have not even life now. Their lives are at the mercy of the man that you just heard, who described them in their totality as an axis of evil. And I want to make sure people are clear about something. We're not going to play this week the game of, oh, they're not intentionally targeting civilians. No, not when you could look at the footage and see that Gaza has been carpet bombed. And when you could see the mass graves of families and children, and not when you have the former Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, Dan Gillerman, in this clip, in an interview with Sky News, describing Palestinians as inhuman animals and wondering why the world has any sympathy or compassion for Palestinians at all, comparing them to Al-Qaeda.
You know, I'm very puzzled by the constant concern which the world and also Britain, I must say, Mark, is showing for the Palestinian people, and is actually showing for these horrible, inhuman animals who have done the worst atrocities that this century has seen, and the worst atrocities that Jews have suffered since the Holocaust. I mean, you know, when the United States reacted to 9/11, I don't remember people shedding tears for the Taliban or Al-Qaeda.
You know, that will go down as one of the most evil sentiments that I have heard verbally, right? He had the nerve to say this with the confidence to broadcast this internationally, to question why people would have any compassion for Palestinians as we see their children and their wives and their daughters and their fathers and their uncles and their grandparents decimated by rockets, by missile strikes. Why would we have compassion for people who are being slaughtered? And then for him to say that the 1,400 Israelis who were killed by the Hamas militants is the worst atrocity we've seen this century, right? This intentionally hyperbolic statement is the justification they are using to literally engage in one of the most horrific tragedies that we have seen this century. But when you dehumanize an entire group, that gives you the authority to ignore their suffering and focus solely on your own suffering. That gives you the permission to not only dehumanize them, but to slaughter them indiscriminately. Listen more to this vile sentiment from Dan Gillerman, the former ambassador to the UN from Israel.
All of a sudden, when it comes to Israel, everybody is becoming a great humanitarian, totally forgetting what happened 2.5 weeks ago, which is unforgettable and unforgiven.
Unforgettable and unforgiven. There's his justification. There's Benjamin Netanyahu's justification for the violence they are committing in Gaza, because they are not going to forget what happened on October 7th. Here's a funny thing about memory, though. As we move further and further away from October 7th, And they continue, as Israel continues these attacks, what will continuously be fresh in the mind of humanity are the images of mass graves, the bodies, the children that are slaughtered, the fathers who are carrying their children into the morgue in bags because their bodies had been blown apart. As the world continues to see that, it is not that anyone has forgotten October 7th. It's that your fresh atrocities are so heinous that the repugnant and disgusting and malevolent nature of them rise and foment to the top, such that the world does not have room emotionally to continue to expend as much love and care about October 7th as we extend to the current ongoing atrocities. In other words, you're not going to be able to use October 7th as a continued justification of these atrocities, even though that's what you want to do. You want to be able to do it and everyone in the world go along with you, and for everyone in the world to ignore it. That might work for you, Dan Gillerman. That might work for you, Benjamin Netanyahu, Ben Shapiro. But that does not work for the rest of humanity, who are not going to forget October 7th. But we certainly are never going to forget what you did in retaliation, in your rage, in your quest for retribution and revenge.